Yo, guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bane's Film Reviews. Today, I am sitting down with Ryan Fleming, the writer, director, and producer of Sisyphus Unbound, which is a short film that I had the pleasure to watch last week. It is about life's hurdles and doing our best to overcome them. It really resonated with me, and I thought it was a fantastic film. So I'm so happy to have Ryan here with me today. How are we doing?
I'm good. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So before we actually get into the film, I'm just curious how you got into filmmaking in the first place.
Oh man, it was a journey. Yeah, I'm one of those people. I always wanted to do a bunch of different things, and when I first came to university, I wanted to do psychology. I wanted to be a clinician. I also wanted to be a mid, like a student of like medieval studies. Like I wanted to go on
Mm,
and be like a professor on that. But both of those, the things I realized is I can't really travel. It's going to be, I'm doing the same thing every day, and knowing myself, it'll get old. So I kind of started to expand myself, and I always loved stories. And 2 or 3 years ago, I took my first, it was just like a screenwriting basic class, and I fell in love with it. And I just started, diving into all the different ways that you can, understand a film, and, all the different aspects to it, from the direction to cinematography to writing and stuff like that. And it's been an addiction, and I've been hooked ever since.
awesome. Very, very cool. And then how did you come up with the idea for Sisyphus Unbound?
That was a challenge because it was a part of the winter film competition. So basically, we had 1 month to write, shoot, and edit the film. It was not an easy task, so I had a week to get this whole thing written out. And I was kind of thinking out. I started out thinking about titles,
Mm,
and one of my favorite books is Frankenstein, and
okay.
the other title of Frankenstein is Prometheus Unbound. So I started thinking about that. I started shipping things around, and I really like the work of Albert Camus and his sort of existentialist philosophy. And one of his books is called The Myth of Sisyphus, which kind of talks about, how in modern life, the things that we do are very repetitive, and we kind of do the same thing over and over again. And
Okay.
his argument was actually that you should embrace that kind of monotony, which I'm very much against. So you can imagine that Sisyphus Unbound is um, sort of trying to fight against that. And yeah, so I was starting out just I wanted to do something, with a fun power dynamic, and something that goes back and forth quite a bit, and really like kind of usurps itself halfway through.
Hmm.
And that's what I pretty much had that planned out, and then the rest of it was just getting writing. And yeah.
Very, very cool. So I did have a question about the title, which you obviously just went into a little bit of detail about. But so one of my questions is because I mean Sisyphus Unbound is a pretty simple narrative. I mean, it's one that it's pretty easy to understand, and it's something that resonates. Like I said, it resonated with me, and I'm sure that it will resonate with everyone else that watches it because it's very familiar. But you hear the name Sisyphus, and you immediately think Greek mythology and things of that nature, and you think of things that are unworldly and just so powerful and grand compared to trying to get a paper published. Um and I imagine that it's not a complete coincidence that your main character's name is Virgil. But so how and why did you decide to create this juxtaposition between such an epic name for this film and then the simplicity of the narrative itself?
Yeah, so I think it's when it comes to making art, I think it's really important, really valuable to be able to meet both the extremes, to have like the simple emotional story, and also to be able to do essentially high art. And that's what I really enjoy doing, because if you have something that's just high art, then the only people that are going to enjoy it are the people who are interested in that kind of thing. Whereas if
Mm-hmm.
you have the emotional story, that's going to get anyone involved. So I really want, with everything I do, I try to meet that juxtaposition right in the middle, and I try to do both, because I think truly like the best films that are ever made all do this.
Okay.
So that's something that I want to get both layers of depth, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And and I grew up. I love Greek mythology. I grew up on the Percy Jackson books, and just
Okay.
worked my way up from there. And yeah, so like Sisyphus, of course, kind of like talks about breaking the mold, and the fact that Sisyphus was forced by Zeus to roll a boulder up a hill repeatedly, And once he got up to the top, it would roll back down, and he had to do that for all of eternity. So you can see where Camus got the allegory from.
Mhm.
But Velger himself, his name, a couple parts to it. The first one is because Velger was a writer
Mhm.
and a thinker, and he was the guide to Dante and Dante's Inferno. He's the one who guides him through hell. So I kind of visualized it as he's going into hell, and he's kind of like figuring his way out and figuring his way around. So maybe it's sort of it's an early on version of Velger from Dante's Inferno. So that was the inspiration behind that name, and I think that just the act of writing and creating art is very, I don't want to say dangerous, but it's very scary, and you never
Mhm.
know what's going to come out of it. And oftentimes you can see things in yourself or maybe in what you create that you don't necessarily want to see.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing about just about being an artist. And I think Velger embodies, or his experience very much embodies that kind of terror. I mean, it's kind of like the ultimate fear. Like it couldn't have gotten worse for him, and
Right.
yet he found a way to come out on top. And I
Yeah.
think that's the really inspirational thing about it. So
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And then so with the realism aspect and the simplicity of it, um, why choose something so simple? Like you said, you wanted that balance, but why not just shoot for the middle? Why drag it so far to simplicity? And then how do you know that you're doing that justice? Because I imagine that you're now tasking yourself with, well, everyone understands this, and it's going to be very easy for everyone to nitpick and say, well, that's not realistic. That's not reality. So how do you know that you're doing it justice, and how do you know that you're capturing the reality when you're doing this?
well, the reality is exactly what I'm going for, and I think that that really was the challenge, and just trying to make sure it's all realistic. And you know, I myself, I'm a student, I'm an artist. I very much come from the same kind of place as him, and I think the because it's such a character-driven script. I mean, both characters have their motivations, and those motivations control pretty much everything.
Mhm.
So it was just a matter of getting to know those characters, to know what they want, to know you know, what kind of makes them take a little bit
Right.
um, was something that I just had to flesh out. And once I got that fleshed out, the rest all kind of came together.
Okay.
And fortunately, I also study psychology to this day, so I've got a little bit of a background in knowing people, and I think that's helped out a lot.
Very, very cool. Um, and then so I haven't posted the review yet. So I want to ask you now because Tim told me to hang on to the review. Is it okay to post that review now?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
I'd love
perfect.
to hear.
What's that?
I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Perfect. So one of the things that I say is I praise Frederick because he's fantastic, and it's
Yes.
a very unique character where he's very obviously not the dominant personality in the situation, and he transforms very quickly. You don't give him there's not tons of time for him to be able to transform and become as dynamic as he is. So he a lot of the time is responding to what Layman is saying throughout the course of the film. So first
Yes.
of all, how do you write the character? How do you write this protagonist that is very obviously the submissive? And then how do you find Frederick who does it so well?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. Frederick was absolutely fantastic, and I'd worked with him on a film before, and he's very much a very charismatic person. Like he's such a joy to have on set. So
Hmm.
having him, you know, put in that position to play a character that is the opposite of what he is, which is really it was really really fun and really enjoyable. And I was talking to you beforehand because we had a couple ideas we were shopping around, and those other ideas had a more like powerful protagonist, and he's kind of
Hmm.
like, no, I want to do something different. I think it'd be more fun to, you know, go out there and do something strange. And I was 100% with it. And I think that the growth that Vilcher goes through
Hmm.
um, wouldn't be possible if he had that strong kind of confidence. And you can kind of see in the beginning, he's kind of like trying to build himself up when he's kind of like looking off to space and he's kind of like laser focused on what lies ahead of him.
Yeah.
So he's someone that, you know, he tries to make himself confident, but he doesn't necessarily have it naturally. So we had to kind of make sure that Frederick was showing with just his facial emotions and his posture that
Hmm.
he's trying to convince himself to be confident, and he's not just confident or unconfident. He's constantly got this conflict in his own mind, and I think that's really what Frederick grasped and got it to a T. I mean, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
being able to um, just to be able to show that conflict without talking about it whatsoever is it really impressed me as well. In terms of writing it, it was definitely something that had a lot to do with just my communications to Frederick, because I can't really
Mm.
um, put a lot of those communications in the script as far as his demeanor, outside of he's looking unconfident, he's looking confident, stuff like that. So it was really just a lot of working with Frederick and working to figure out what worked for the film and what
Mhm.
would showcase that conflict.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm super proud of him. I think he did fantastic.
Yeah, he does. He accomplishes a lot of that that unspoken conflict by the positioning of his head. He does a great job of looking down a lot.
Mhm.
Until his moment toward the end. He does such a good job. It's very obvious that he's in his head. And while I mean it's dialogue driven for sure, but most of what you get out of Virgil is unspoken. And he just that's the thing that caught my eye was that when he's sitting in the chair, he's slumped and his head is down, and you could tell it just felt like I was in my own head, playing this out over and over again. Well, like how the hell am I going to deal with this guy? And he's just phenomenal. So I can't say enough good things about him. So kudos to you for landing him, and kudos to him for being able to pull this very dynamic and very interesting character off. Um, and then so again with the positioning, I mentioned the positioning of his head, and he does such a good job of that. But also something I noticed was the positioning of Layman throughout the course of this conversation. And Cox Tim is brilliant.
Yeah.
I've fortunately I've had Tim on here, and I've been able to see a lot of his films, and he never disappoints. And this is another example of just when he does a phenomenal job. Um, but he's positioned in different places around the room, whether it's at the desk or next to Virgil, or when he sees his daughter for the first time. His position in the room sort of is a reflection of the tone and of the direction in which the conversation is headed, or even where it's at in the moment. So, what was the process like of finding the perfect position for him, or finding the perfect camera angle to showcase him, and then having Tim bring that to life?
Okay, I'm gonna shut that
Sure.
off. Sorry, my roommate just kind of walked in.
No, no, you're
Can
fine.
you repeat that? Can you repeat that question for me?
Yeah. So a lot of the film is reliant, the conversation is reliant on where Tim is positioned throughout, or specific, Layman is positioned throughout the conversation, whether it's next to
Mhm.
Virgil or behind the desk. So what was it like scripting, or at least coming up with the idea of where he would be positioned in the room? And then how do you express that to Tim, and have him be positioned in the right place to drive the narrative forward?
Yeah, so like most of the film, the primary goal was this power dynamic between the two of them. It's something that
Mm.
I really wanted to play around with, and you can see that Layman's character as well is playing around with this power dynamic. He's kind of like going
Yeah.
back and forth. He's saying, "Oh, I really do care about your hat." Just kidding, no, I don't. And there's that constant back and forth. So I was really thinking about if I was Velger, what would make me the most uncomfortable. And so we had actually, Tim actually blocked himself a lot of that scene when he stands by the wall for a second, kind of sits there
Hmm.
and thinks, and then he goes in. That kind of weight he added in himself, and absolutely love it because it really makes Virgil, he stops and thinks like, what is this guy doing? Like
Yeah.
I imagine I'm in a professor's office hours over my shoulder. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So I really wanted to just make him feel uncomfortable, and a lot of the film is about uncomfortability.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that the opening scene, for instance, with Emerson Adams and Frederick, who both did a fantastic job in that opening.
Hmm.
It was so uncomfortable to be their own person. Like it was so cringy, and me and my DP Ashton Francis were just sitting there laughing because it was just, man, it was weird. It was very uncomfortable. It was like the opposite of how you want to first kind of encounter to go,
Right.
and that's how Virgil feels. I mean, he's kind of like a
Hmm.
socially awkward kind of guy, so that's just how he feels oftentimes with these interactions,
Hmm.
and that's what I really wanted to hammer at home. And yeah, I mean, our talent absolutely understood the assignment, and Tim as well. Just fantastic at making Frederick feel uncomfortable, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, Tim's an amazing human being, and um, the fact that he got that down, I was so thankful. And the first time we shot that scene, and when we had that shot when it's a bit of a Dutch angle, and he's leaning in behind Virgil, and you have that light kind of like peeking through in the background. You're like, oh,
Mm,
man, awesome. So
yeah.
yeah, really exciting.
It's a great dynamic between the two of them, because and it's great when all of a sudden it shifts. When he reaches into the trash can, that moment is perfect. Um, and then back to the first encounter with Virgil, where he has his head down and he's walking and he's thinking, and that uncomfortable instance. I'm sorry, repeat her name for me one more time. I'm drawing a blank.
Emerson Adams.
Yes. So when they have that first encounter, um, you find out later how, like, what a dominant personality she is as well. So
Yes.
you're understanding the uncomfortability that would have existed in that moment, but then it adds a layer to that, because now you have the dynamic between those two different characters that continue to develop over the next few minutes. So it's very well layered, and it plays out very well in that way. And even if you don't understand it in that moment, it continues to build and it works incredibly well.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. And then, so like I said, this review will be up in the next couple of days. I just have to go back and edit, and then it'll be up, like I said, probably over the weekend. But when people read it, I'm hoping that they get the gist of what the film is and how great it is. And I'm hoping that they want to watch the film. I can't imagine why they wouldn't. Like I said, it's phenomenal. Where will they be able to watch it?
Yeah, so right now it's on the festival circuit, so we're kind of keeping things kind of private under wraps.
Hmm.
Once it is out, I will post it. Probably it's going to be sometime in the fall or early winter.
Okay.
That's when we're going to be all done, and I'm going to post on my YouTube channel, which is just Ryan Fleming Productions. If you follow me on Instagram as well at Faraway Fleming, I'll post updates on there. And I'll make sure that I post a review as well, help you out a little bit. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's where you'll be able to find it if you want to find me. Yeah.
Fantastic. I will include links to all of the social media accounts so people can follow along. And then if you're working on anything right now, can you tell us anything about that?
But right now I'm working on finals.
Okay.
But yeah, once I'm done with this, I got a couple ideas in the works. I do want to expand Sisyphus Unbound out. I
Okay.
do want to make it into a feature. So I'm going to be working on that. And then this fall, I'm going to be heading into a master's program in the UK, and it's essentially kind of like a feeder program for some soap operas in the UK. So I'm going to be practicing a lot of soap operas and a lot of shows that I didn't have a ton of experience writing beforehand. I'll just be diving into. So hopefully you'll see my name on those credits sometime soon.
Very cool. That sounds very exciting. So I would love to see a feature film of Sisyphus Unbound. I'm sure it will be fantastic. So whenever that happens, I will be on the lookout and I will definitely check it out. And then just one final question for you. So what are some of your favorite films?
Oh man, that's the toughest question.
Yeah.
Man, I like films that play around with suspense a lot, kind of like Sisyphus, that, there's lots of either back and forth or really strong, build.
Mhm.
So I say the first film that really, really got me into film, that really impacted me, was Hereditary. I
Okay.
love Hereditary, and the gradual, constant build of tension that you see in that film is fantastic. So
Yeah.
I love Hereditary and the way it plays on the genre as well. So that's a great film. I'm going to be that guy. Interstellar is one of those movies that I absolutely
Okay.
love. Everyone loves it, and for good reason. I mean, it's fantastic. It's amazing, and Hans Zimmer's score is a special place in my heart. Um, yeah, it's tough to say after that because there's just too many.
Yeah, for sure.
I have been watching the God 2014 Godzilla film. I think
Okay.
is an unspoken masterpiece. I will die
Yeah.
on that hill. I think it is absolutely exceptional. And it, once again, has to do with how they play around the tension and how they make us feel small. And I think that's important in a kaiju film. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I hate to admit that I haven't seen either Hereditary or Interstellar. Hereditary because I haven't had the time, and Interstellar because I'm incredibly stubborn and I don't like Matthew McConaughey. Uh,
Hmm.
But I've been told, I don't know, 2 dozen times by my brother-in-law that I need to check that out because it's maybe a perfect film. So I'll have to do that sometime soon and just get over the fact that I can't stand McConaughey. But it is what it is. Ryan, again, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I love talking about the film, and again, it was fantastic. And I look forward to being able to share some more information about it and others be able to watch it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been great. It's been nice talking to you, Kyle.
You are more than welcome. You have a great day.
You too.
See ya.
Bye.